Hey guys, it's Anna from Bright Lane Gardens, and today I'm excited to switch it up just a little bit. Continuing on my indoor gardening series, today we're going to talk about Amaryllis bulbs. It is currently early November here in northern Michigan, and we are quickly coming upon the holiday season. What better way to bring in some color and life into your home than to plant an Amaryllis bulb? Now, the Amaryllis bulb is a very classic Christmas bloom, especially if you live in a colder region like we do here. Because this plant is more of a subtropical plant, it originates from Cape Town region of South Africa. It's accustomed to much warmer temperatures than we experience here in Michigan. However, it loves a sunny windowsill with 70-degree temperatures, which means it's an ideal indoor plant over the winter months. If you were to walk into any of the big box stores like Lowe's or Home Depot right now, you would absolutely see these guys near the front entrance. This is a really classic holiday plant, a really common gift to give during the holiday season, and just a great indoor plant all the way around. Now, those bulbs at the big box stores are totally fine. I bought my bulbs from a local bulb dealer here in northern Michigan. However, I do dry and store my bulbs every year. So the bulbs that you see today are actually 3 to 4 years old and have been through multiple rounds of blooming already. In this video today, I just want to walk through what type of soil I use, how I go about potting my amaryllis flower, and how I force it into bloom. At the end of the video, I'll go ahead and talk about how I dry and store my bulbs so I can plant them again for future use. Before we get started on the video, this is a gardening channel. I talk about anything and everything to do with growing plants. Now, during the winter season, I love to talk about my indoor garden, which does include a hydroponic setup, indoor fruits and veggies, along with my indoor flowers. So amaryllis is one of the indoor flowers that I love to grow inside my home. It's also one of the lowest maintenance plants that I have here on the property, so therefore it's one of my favorites. If you like learning about content like this and want to see more of it, definitely take the time to subscribe to our channel. We love each and every one of you and are so appreciative of the minutes that you spend here. There are just a few things that we'll need to get started on our planting process today. First and foremost, we need a healthy and large amaryllis bulb. This is one of my bulbs that I stored from last year. Now, when you're looking for an amaryllis bulb, you want one that is slightly larger. The larger the bulb, the more likely it is to produce more flower buds. So you're likely to get more flowers out of your larger bulbs. You also want to make sure that your bulb is not squishy at all and has no signs of mold or mildew, because this might mean that there's a little bit of rot inside of that bulb and there's a chance that it won't bloom at all. As you can see, amaryllis bulbs are larger than your typical daffodil or tulip bulbs. This is great. This means that you only want to do one bulb per container unless you have a larger container to use. Next, you are going to need a container. I always recommend doing a container that's at least a 6-inch diameter. You want about 2 inches on either side of the bulb to give the plant room to grow. As you can see, this container will be plenty big enough for me. You might notice this is a wooden container. Fortunately, amaryllis bulbs do not need a lot of water. Therefore, I can actually plant them in containers that I typically would not plant other plants in. The other thing to consider is I usually only keep my amaryllis bulbs potted up for a couple months at a time, which means I will eventually empty out this container and leave it to dry out so I can use it again next year. Next, we're going to want a nice, high quality, well-draining potting mix. I do create my own potting mixes for all of my indoor plants, but I have a specific mix that I use for succulents and cactuses. When we're thinking about potting up a tropical plant, you always want to think about what were the conditions where it came from. Now, the amaryllis comes from the Cape Town region of South Africa. It's a rocky and arid region that does not have a ton of super rich soil, and it also does not receive a ton of moisture. So I'm looking for soil that's very different than the soil that we have here in northern Michigan. Amaryllis bulbs prefer a well-draining coco coir with a perlite blend. I did include some regular topsoil into my blend as well, along with some coarse sand to assist in drainage. This blend is much more on the dry side than our fruits and veggies would require here in Michigan, but it's perfect for some of our plants that don't like quite as much moisture. And last, this is optional, but I do like to fertilize my bulbs in hopes that they'll grow a little bit larger for the following year. I love using Job's Organic. This is the rose and flower blend. You only need a tiny bit of it for a single amaryllis bulb. So if you get a bag like this and only have one bulb to fertilize, this is going to last you for a very long time. Fortunately, this is safe to use on most plants that you have in your yard, including all of your flowering plants and anything else that you plant in the garden. So if you do buy a bag of this, you can put it to good use. I will go ahead and link this in the description down below, just so it's easy for you to find. Amaryllis bulbs are very easy to plant. Just a couple quick steps and we'll have this guy in the soil. Once you've selected your amaryllis bulb and have made sure that it's free from any mold or rot, we're ready to go ahead and plant it. Now, amaryllis flower stems can actually get pretty tall and the flowers are so large that they can become top heavy. So I do recommend, if you have a paperweight or a rock or a stone, to stick it in the bottom of the pot just to add some additional weight and prevent that pot from flipping over once those flower stalks grow to their full height. I have this little cement caster that I'm going to place in the very bottom of my pot just to add some extra weight. Once I place my weight in the bottom of the pot, I'm going to go ahead and add my soil. Our first step is going to be to fill up the pot about 1/3 of the way full with your soil blend. Make sure you're feeling into your soil and break up any clumps that you feel. You want to make sure that the soil is nice and fine, almost as if you were planting a new seedling. Once you have your soil in your pot, you're going to go ahead and create just a little divot with your fingers, something large enough for the bottom of your bulb to fit in. On this bulb, since I already have some foliage growing out of the top, it's really easy to tell the top from the bottom. But if you don't have any foliage growing out of the top of your bulb, you're going to look for the ringlets from last year's previously cut foliage to determine which side is the top and which side is the bottom. I can also see a couple dried roots on the bottom of my bulb here, and the bottom definitely has more of a rounded shape, while the top is a little bit more pointed. Bottom down, go ahead and gently place that into the divot that you've created with your fingers. Your bulb should just be sitting on top of the soil right now. Now we're going to go ahead and fill in the gaps around the sides of the bulb, but we are not going to completely cover the bulb. I want about 1/3 of the top of my bulb to be sticking out of the soil, so only add in a couple more inches of soil into your pot. Gently smooth out the surface of your soil, but there is no need to press that soil down firmly. We want to keep it nice and loose so the roots can easily make their way through the new soil blend. I like to take my pot and tap it down a couple times just to make sure that any air gaps are filled in with the soil. Your bulb should be pretty steady in your soil mixture. When you tap your pot down, if you see your bulb move side to side, try to put a little bit more dirt in there just to offer more support. Outside of that, your bulb should gently be sitting in the soil. Once you've confirmed that your bulb is correctly seated in the soil, you can go ahead and water it. Now keep in mind, this plant does not like wet feet. That first watering right after you plant it will likely be the most you'll ever water this flower. When the blooms start to appear, you'll increase your watering just a little bit, and once they die back, you'll decrease it by a significant amount. For now, we'll go ahead and water with just plain water, and we will not be adding any fertilizer until I see my first signs of foliage start to appear. Once you've given your amaryllis bulb its first watering, it's ready to go ahead and be placed on a sunny windowsill. Amaryllis flowers do like full sun, but they like bright, indirect sunlight. Now here in northern Michigan, we do not get a lot of direct sunlight over the winter months, so I'm gonna go ahead and place this guy on a south-facing window. If you live in a region that isn't as overcast as we are during the winter months, you might wanna consider a west-facing window or something that gives a little bit of space between the window and the plant. But for our area, this window will be just fine. Amaryllis bulbs typically bloom for 2 to 4 weeks. After that point, you'll start to notice the foliage slowly die back. During this phase, you'll reduce your watering and allow the plant to start to dry out. This is called entering its dormant phase. Once the plant fully enters its dormant phase and all foliage has dried up or fallen off, at this point it's safe to go ahead and store the bulb. This is when I will dig up my bulbs out of the pots and store them in a brown paper bag in a place that is dark and slightly chilly, usually 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. This dormant phase also mimics a natural winter for this bulb, which means after that dormant phase, usually about 6 to 8 weeks, you can force the bulb to go into its bloom cycle again. To do this, you'll go ahead and bring the bulb back into a lit area, repot it up with that same potting mix that you used before, and start to water it again. Before long, you'll see the foliage start to emerge and it'll start its bloom process again. If you do intend to do this, a high quality fertilizer like the Jobe's Organics fertilizer that I showed you earlier would do you quite well, as this is an unusual bloom cycle for this specific flower. Typically, amaryllis bulbs will only bloom once per year, but if you play your cards right and if you have healthy enough bulbs, you can sometimes force it to go twice. It's important to note that amaryllis bulbs can be grown outdoors. Amaryllis bulbs can survive in USDA growing zones 8 through 10, and if you are in zone 8, I encourage you to add some additional mulch or frost cloth to protect your plant just in case you have an unseasonable cold snap. One of the benefits of growing amaryllis bulbs indoors is the fact that you get to pick when it blooms. So if you are going after those Christmas blooms like I'm going after right now, try to plant your bulbs at least 6 weeks before Christmas time to ensure that you have Christmas blooms on your flower. From there, you can enjoy 2 to 4 weeks of continuous blooms well into January and ring in the new year with a little bit of color. Amaryllis bulbs are just one of many plants that I love to grow indoors. If you also like to garden indoors over the winter months, then take the time to subscribe to our channel for fun tips and tricks and the different methods that I use for my indoor gardening. If you have any questions on my growing methods for amaryllis bulbs or any other indoor plant, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you have any questions on indoor plants in general that you would love to see a video of, leave them in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in with us today. I appreciate each and every minute that you spend on our channel, and it greatly benefits small businesses like ours here at Bright Lane Gardens. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and I sure hope to catch you next time. Bye-bye.